This is a very informative historical novel. It allows you to learn and eventually investigate further one of the most consequential empires and civilizations in history. It enlivens the Aeneid, from which the basics of the narrative comes from, and constructs a wonderful novel all around it in a very masterful fashion. So if you want to learn more about the Phoenicians and this great novel in general, stay tuned. Welcome to biblioCultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Doing all these things really helps out, and I appreciate it. I'm also going to put in the bottom my X account, and on the side, my Ko-Fi account, where you can do recurring donations or single tips, anything that can help the channel. I really appreciate it. And there's also a link there for my merch store to help promote the channel. In this episode, I'm going over The Purple Quest by Frank G. Slaughter. And this edition is from Doubleday 1965. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of other versions of it. This is one I actually got on one of those bins where you have discarded books, and I found this jewel there, and I was very happy to get it for almost nothing. So always when you see those donation bins with books in supermarkets, etc., go through them, because you never know where you're going to find. I've always found things that are fascinating. This novel is one of those classic adventure novels that were very popular in the 50s and 60s, which takes a particular historical era and creates a narrative around it. And Frank G. Slaughter was known for this, as a matter of fact. In this one, not a very long novel, but very, very engaging. It gives you great details about the Phoenicians, a very important civilization in the history of the world. I would say that alongside the Greeks and the Romans, and of course the Egyptians, all these cultures had permanent impact on our civilization, and the Phoenicians are up there amongst the top, even though to a lot of people they're somewhat unknown, unfortunately. So this is a nice little novel to get you familiarized. The book highlights the fascinating tradition related to the goddess Astarte, for example. Young virgins would give their virginity to the first man who went to visit the temple and gave a gift for said virginity, who then the girl would give to the temple and thus be free to marry whomever they wanted or whomever the family chose. And of course, this particular tradition is so wildly different from our world that it will probably call the attention of most, and I think this is why this historical fact is placed right in the beginning of the story, to give it an edge, to communicate how different and how culturally interesting the Phoenicians were. Also about their important navigational skills. The reason we know the Phoenicians is because of their expansion throughout all the Mediterranean, and even outside the Mediterranean, through the Pillars of Hercules, down the coast of Africa, up the coast of Europe, bringing their alphabet, their goods, etc. And something that I found kind of cool is that they painted their entire ships black, their sails, their ships, so they could do raids and attacks at night. And obviously just visualizing that is very exciting to consider, because not even the pirates painted all their ships black. So just knowing this gives it a texture that is not very common. Also, the structure of the high priesthood with the temple rituals and the main gods of Phoenicia, but seeing it in action within a narrative is always very enlightening and allows you to experience ancient religions without being just the dry informational way of getting that knowledge. Now, Tyre was known for the production of the color purple, which is actually my favorite color. and it derived from the Murex shellfish. They would go out and extract the shellfish and then go through a lot of hard processes to extract the necessary raw materials, and it took a lot of the shellfish to get a small amount of purple. So it developed into a very complex process, applying this to cloth and then selling it throughout the Mediterranean, becoming the color of royalty, actually. And because of the importance of the color purple, thus the title of the book, the notion of being able to find an alternative source for the color was an important trade topic at the time. And there's a lot of geopolitics in the novel. The Assyrians are around, the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Israel, obviously referencing biblical times where you had these two kingdoms divided, and their interaction with the Greeks, etc. So the whole dynamic of that moment in time is captured nicely by the book. Let me quote a short piece here to give you a further taste of the novel. In this section is about books, because the production of books was a very important dynamic in the ancient world, especially in Egypt and then surrounding Egypt. Quote, "Stacked in long rolls was the papyrus manufactured in Egypt from the pith of reeds growing along the waterways there, but traded for so long by the Phoenicians of Byblos. The Greek merchant seamen had given it the name biblos. Fine linens from Egypt, byssus from Syrian looms, oil, wine from Israel, all were racked beside armor and weapons of bronze and occasionally of iron. The smelting of and forging of this much sought-after metal had for a long time remained a secret of the Hittites, until the tribes called the Peliset, or Philistines, descendants of a vast wave of sea people who had once flowed southward along the very coast, had begun to manufacture it in the vast desert reaches south of the Sea of the Dead in nearby Judah." So as you can see in that quote, the textures of all that historical reality is very important. And for those of us that love books, the fact that the term biblos or biblio, like the name of my channel, stems from the Phoenicians trading papyrus in that region exemplifies the impact of this civilization. Now, of course, with any novel, especially historical novels, anachronisms are quite common and are easy to creep into a work. The ones in this book in particular, I found them to be fascinating for some reason, so I want to mention a few of them. One of them is the fact that the author has one of the characters mention the fact that he sees Kabbalistic symbols chiseled into the walls of a cave. Now, obviously, this would be impossible since Kabbalism is quite a recent phenomena. They're all rabbinical speculations of the 12th century, being deeply influenced by Greek philosophy. So obviously, it doesn't belong in a cave in the region of Phoenicia hundreds and hundreds of years before it could have happened. Another anachronism is the articulation of the non-aggression principle, which I found it kind of funny when I saw it. The non-aggression principle is an absurdly modern, individualistic notion. I'll put it down in the notes. But this clearly has no bearing in the reality of the ancient world. Everything was not about the individual and how things affect me individually, and whether you have a right to have your own opinion individually. Human beings did not start seeing the world that way until very recently. So I found it fascinating that this cultural concept was injected into the story. I understand why it was put in there, because they're trying to present the main characters as being moral from the perspective of modern people. But it is an anachronism, and it did stand out severely for me. Another one is the manifestation, the expression of sentimental conjugal love. And I'm going to quote a little bit of it so you understand what I mean. "I desire you with every fiber of my body, but I also want you to be the mother of my children, the wife I will come home to at night, the strong staff I can lean upon in time of trouble and uncertainty. and the companion of our declining years. Such a union is not built in a night of passion before sailing on a hazardous mission. It is built in marriage and a gradual understanding of each other through the years. So a very beautiful sentiment, no doubt, a sentiment that I actually agree with. It's wonderful. It's aspirational, it's moral, etc. But is somewhat anachronistic because it stems from a long development of conceptions of romance, of Christian ethics, etc., that are quite particular. Marriage as a sacrament, for example. Now, that's not to say that other religions in the ancient world did not believe that marriage was special or important, but it was not taken into this particular individualistic, personal relationship dynamic. It was mostly based on alliances, convenience, and attraction. But this particular romantic twist to the relationship itself is, I believe, quite modern, so as to make this dynamic in the story stand out as well. So as you can see in a lot of these things, it has to do more with the author giving a taste of the present to the past so that the reader can relate to the characters. So I don't think they're done for anything other than engaging the reader in the story. Because at the end of the day, this book is a classic tale of love, betrayal, political wrangling, and historical exploration. And like I said, it's a great way to familiarize yourself with the religious context of the time instead of assuming the caricature that has been painted of the ancient world. The Phoenicians did navigate the furthest of any human group in history, and I think that's almost even today the case when you look at the context. If we look at the scope of what the Phoenicians did, their culture has been more impactful than almost any other. All of our alphabets are basically Phoenician, from Latin, Greek, even the runic alphabet of the Norsemen are derived from Phoenician script. Not the languages, which are Proto-Indo-European, not all in Europe, but most in Europe, but the alphabet we use to write this Proto-Indo-European language is Phoenician. And knowing that fact itself is quite impressive. Their influence is undeniable. We still use it. They're still alive in our texts, in our books. So for such an important people and culture, reading anything about them should be first in line, because I think that if we don't, especially again for those that love knowledge and books, how can we not give primacy of study historically to those that give us the term book, biblios, Bible, and our alphabet? To me, it seems absurd. And a small little novel like this can spark that desire to go deeper into the story, to engage the human beings that actually lived it, and to try to understand their culture, religion, etc. So for that purpose, this book is spectacular. And even for just plain entertainment, is a great book to read. So I highly recommend it. Find any copy or edition you can find. And if you have any comments about the book or any thoughts on it, please put it in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this short review. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.